Hi everybody, I'm Susan Mulvihill. You know, my husband and I eat so well all winter long thanks to all of the produce we grow during the summer, and then we either can it, freeze it, or store it. But the thing I miss the most this time of year is fresh salad greens. Unfortunately, my winter garden did not make it through a really cold snap that we had. And so what's a girl to do? Plant microgreens. That is the topic for today because they are going to provide me with wonderful fresh salad greens. And look, this amaryllis is blooming. Let's start with the most important part first, and that is, what in the world are microgreens? Put simply, growing microgreens involves planting the seeds of different types of greens very thickly and then harvesting them while they're quite young. Research studies have shown that microgreens are packed with way more nutrients than their mature counterparts. What are examples of microgreens you might want to grow? Lettuce, peas, that's what you're looking at here, arugula, beet greens, radishes, and kale. While you can just plant packets of these seeds, it is much more economical to buy bulk quantities of seeds. Microgreen seeds are getting easier to find. Here are some examples of companies that sell them. True Leaf Market, Sprout People, Johnny's Selected Seeds, and High Mowing Organic Seeds. Growing microgreens is really quite easy. I've been growing them for quite a few years now and have had great success. But this time I'm doing something different. I'm going to conduct an experiment. I'm going to show you the way that I normally plant microgreens from start to finish, and then I'm also going to experiment with a different method that I recently saw on a website that has information on growing microgreens. The other method is quite involved as far as the time that it takes to end up with harvestable microgreens. But on the other hand, I want to know if it's maybe a better method and I will get much more abundant microgreens. So that's why I thought I'd try both methods today. Now, you don't need very many supplies to grow microgreens. You're going to want some type of a planting container that has drainage holes in it, and then one that doesn't have holes so that when you water this, you're not going to get water all over everything. You're also going to want a soilless potting mix. I like to use what's called germination mix or seed starting mix. It's light and fluffy. You're also going to need some seeds for growing them, and because you plant them quite thickly, you need a lot, and that's why I'm recommending that you go with bulk buy because it's much more economical. You're also going to need a clear plastic dome to put over this, and that's using my method for starting microgreens. And that's pretty much it. So let's go and plant them the way I normally do it, and then I'll show you how this other method works. The first thing I did is I pre-moistened the seed starting mix. And the amount of moisture you want in this is the same as what you would expect to feel in a wrung out sponge. So it's not a lot, it's not sopping wet, but it's lightly moist. And then I'm just going to put about 2 inches of this soil in the container. And then I'm going to pat it down a little bit. I don't want it super hard, but I do want it to provide a bit of a firm base for the seeds to grow into. The next step is to plant the seeds, and I'm going to use the exact same type of seed for both methods so that it's a decent experiment. And so I just want to lightly cover the surface of the soil, and I know this is a lot of seeds, but that's how you plant microgreens since you're not trying to grow plants that you're going to transplant out into your garden. You're going to be harvesting them. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Next thing I'm going to do is water them in. Even though the soil is moist, I want the seeds to make good contact with it. And I know I always get questions about this type of a watering system. All it is something called a bottle top waterer that's screwed onto an empty soda pop bottle. It's really easy to find these tops online by doing a search on bottle top waterers. I love these. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now with my method, I don't put any soil over the top. I have not found it to be necessary, so that conserves my seed starting mix. And then I just take a little clear plastic dome and put it over the flat. And then I'm going to move it under a plant light right away. The next thing I do is I put the flat with the dome lid on it underneath a grow light. Now I know that some folks don't have grow lights. You can certainly put them on a sunny windowsill, make sure they don't get too hot under the dome lid, or just a very bright area, but they really need some good light. I know sometimes folks will keep the seeds in the dark for a while before they let them start growing. Using my method, I skip that because the seeds germinate so quickly, it really hasn't seemed necessary. But darkness is part of the other method, which I'm going to experiment with. So let's talk about that next. So this other method that I'm going to try starting today is quite involved as far as time goes. The first thing you do is you soak the seeds in water for 12 to 24 hours. Then you drain them in a colander or a sieve, depending upon the size of the seeds. And that process goes for 24 to 36 hours. Then you finally get to plant them, but you keep them in the dark for about 4 or 5 days. And then you finally expose them to light and let them grow for about a week before you harvest them. That's quite a few days. But I figured I really need to know if I'm using the most efficient method that yields the best microgreens. And you know, an experiment's a fun thing to do this time of year, right? I just realized I forgot to tell you what type of seeds I'm growing for this experiment. And it is a basic salad mix that's from True Leaf Market. So I've got about the same amount of seeds as what I put into the other container. I've got a little jar here with some water in it, and I'm just going to pour them into the water. And I'll make sure that they all sink down into the water without sticking seeds to myself. So I will be back here in about 24 hours and show you the seeds, and we'll go to the next step. Okay, it's been 24 hours, and so the next step is for me to strain the seeds out of the water. And I tested this sieve yesterday, and the diameter of the holes is small enough so that the seeds won't go through it. But just to be on the safe side, I'm putting a bowl underneath just to catch some if that happens. Well, it's a matter of getting all the seeds out of here. But look, no seeds inside. That's perfect. Let me just get this last bit here. So the next thing you're supposed to do is to rinse them off. It's important both for the soaking process and this process to use cold water. You don't want to use warm or hot water. Leave the seeds in the strainer, and 2 or 3 times a day rinse them again. So they're going to stay in the strainer for a total of 24 to 36 hours, according to what I have learned. However, since I'm trying to do this video, at least in some type of a timely manner, I'm going with the 24 hours. Now, the instructions that I watched said that you could skip this point and plant the seeds right away, but I'm going to follow their directions and see what the results are like. So I'll see you in 24 more hours. Okay, it's 24 hours later. I have rinsed the seeds 4 times, and I just looked at them very closely with a magnifying glass, and I can see some of the seed coats have split open, the seeds are starting to germinate, and in some cases there are tiny little roots coming out. Now I finally get to plant them, and I'm going to use the same method as with the other ones that I planted a few days ago. With the seeds being wet, that's going to make it tricky to spread the seeds onto the soil surface, but I'm going to do the best I can. Oh boy, look at it sticking. And once I get them all out of the colander, I'll spread them out more evenly on the soil surface. So here is a downside to using this method, to be honest. Okay, that looks a lot better. It was not too hard to spread out the seeds over the soil. Once all the seeds were planted, I misted them lightly, and then I'm just going to set them out of the way at the very top of my grow light setup, and then put what they call a blackout dome on top for 4 to 5 days. During that period of time, you're supposed to mist them about every 12 hours. Now, what they're calling a blackout dome is actually a planting flat that does not have any holes in it. And you're probably wondering where I found these 10 by 10 planting flats, which are a really handy size. So I believe I got both the ones without the holes and the ones with the holes from True Leaf Market. I'm not sure if they still have them, but if they don't, I would try greenhousemegastore.com. So that goes on. And again, because I'm trying to make this video in a reasonable amount of time, I am going to go with the minimum amount that they recommended, which was 4 days. So in 4 days, we'll take the dome off, and then it goes under the light. Now, I also wanted to show you how the microgreens that I planted a few days ago are doing so far. Here are the microgreens that I planted just 2 days ago. And notice all that green. It means they are sprouting and sending up new growth. And that is really exciting and amazing how quickly they develop. But I do want to zoom in here. I want to show you something that might look really alarming, but it's perfectly normal. Do you see little bits of white fuzz in there? I want to reassure you that is not mold. It's actually tiny root hairs. So it is normal. Ordinarily, when we plant seeds, we plant them down in the soil, and so of course we don't see those tiny root hairs. But because I plant the microgreen seeds right on the surface of the soil, that's why you're seeing it. So again, it's normal, it's not mold. So now I'm going to put this back under the light, and we'll carry on because I want to show you all the way to the conclusion which method works best. And before I move the tray, you can see I'm pointing right at some of the root hairs. That's what I'm talking about. Hi there, it's me again, and I wanted to give you a quick update on the different types of microgreens that I'm growing. I showed you these speckled peas the other day. They are doing fantastically. Look at this. They are ready to be harvested today. I planted them on January 25th. It is February 3rd, so they are 9 days old now. Is that speedy or what? I'm going to cut them off right above the soil surface, wash them and store them in the refrigerator for making salads. They are so good. And they will sprout again, giving me a second harvest from the same seeds. So that is another thing that's so amazing. On the right is the basic salad mix that I planted on January 29th, so it is now 5 days old, and you can see that they're coming in really nicely. They get to keep growing, but let's get those peas harvested. Looks like a bad haircut, doesn't it? And here's my harvest. Now you're probably wondering how my experimental microgreens are coming along. They have 1 more day to stay under this little blackout dome. But here's what they look like. And I know they look really weird, but that's because they haven't been exposed to any light. Because of that, they're not able to conduct photosynthesis. So that's why you're not seeing any green leaves yet. Tomorrow they go under the lights. Okay, the microgreens have been under the blackout dome for 4 full days. So here is the unveiling. Just like what I showed you yesterday, they are very yellow, but that's because they've been deprived of light. I'll give you a close-up view. There they are. They're certainly taller than the microgreens that I started on the same day. Okay, they finally get to go under some light, and I'm sure they're appreciative of that. I'm going to monitor the soil moisture and let them grow for a week, and with a little luck, they'll be ready to harvest at the end of that week. Stay tuned. Hi again, everybody. I wanted to check in with you real quick for an update. It has been 4 days since I moved these microgreens into the light. These are the ones that are my experimental microgreens. These are the ones that I started using my easy method that does not require darkness and soaking and misting and so on. You can see they look pretty amazing, both of them really. These ones greened up very quickly, and that just illustrates how important light is to plants. So I'm going to let these stay under the lights for a few more days than I had planned, and that's only because I'm going out of town to Seattle for the Northwest Flower and Garden Festival, where I'm giving a couple of presentations. When we get back, I'm going to harvest them, and I will render my official opinion on which method works better. Okay, well, it is the day of reckoning, a chance for me to compare how my 2 methods for starting the microgreens turned out. I planted pea microgreens on January 25th using my regular quick method and harvested them about 10 days later, and I'm ready to harvest them a second time because you usually can get 2 pickings out of pea microgreens, and then it's time to start with new seeds from that point on. What you're looking at here are the 2 trays of microgreens. This is the basic salad mix. I started both of them on January 29th. The batch on the right was using my quick method where I just planted the seeds, put them under the lights, and let them grow. On the left side, that's the new experimental method for me. My first time giving them a blackout time, also the soaking of the seeds, the misting, and so on. So here's how they look, and I thought to be completely objective about this, I'm also going to harvest both of these flats, weigh them individually just to see if there's much of a difference in the bulk that I got from this more detailed method for starting microgreens. So let me do that next. Okay, drum roll please. What I did is I harvested each of the flats of microgreens, and I put a piece of tape on this plate to designate that these are the experimental ones that took more effort. Now I did get more microgreens from cutting them. These ones yielded approximately 4 ounces of microgreens, and I know it doesn't sound like a lot, but we're talking about little plants. And then the ones using my quick method, I got about 3 ounces. I have to say, and I'm trying to be very objective here, that the ones using my quick method seem healthier, the leaves are larger, whereas these ones are pretty tiny and they just don't seem quite the same. So in my mind, this quick method is better because it's quick. You know, I was able to just plant them right away, put them under the lights. I could have harvested them a few days ago. They would have been about the same size as what you see here. But I really wanted to know if it makes a significant difference by putting them through the soaking process, the misting process, and the blackout process. And I don't know. I think I'm still going to stick with my quick method, but I did want to show you both ways to do it. And if you've been using the more detailed method and having great results, then don't change. You don't need to. But I did want to show you what I ended up with, and I'm looking forward to some great salads in the coming days. All right, I know this was a long video. Thanks so much for hanging in there with me, and I'll see you next week.